Good afternoon. Today is the 4th of February and the door on this FSO Polonaise is going to shut itself, isn't it? It is. I better just catch that before it does. There we go. So this is the Atwell-Wilson Motor Museum at Calne in Wiltshire. I'm here with Mr. Bill from the Fuel Power channel. He's actually wearing his branded merchandise. Hello, Mr. Bill. So he's in the middle of doing his non-shambolic shuffle, whereas I'm in the middle of doing my rather more shambolic attempt at getting around this museum. So this is a 1989 FSO Polonaise Prima. That door's going to stay, isn't it? Brilliant. These are very, very rare cars now in this country. They made them for an awfully long time over in Eastern Europe. This is from the sort of latter days of the communist era. It was in '89, but they continued producing these, and actually they were imported for a lot longer than you'd imagine, as the FSO Caro in the 1990s. I think the last ones would have come in about around the year 2000, something like that, but they're almost non-existent now. You just don't see them. This one would have had a 1.6 engine, typical kind of Eastern European. Look at those stalks and things like that in here, and just everything about it is quite amazing. I know Jeremy Clarkson destroyed two of these in a sort of Conkers match, I think. Or was it Conkers, or was it sort of Skittles? I can't remember exactly now. In the 1990s, but it's a shame that he did, because they're so rare now. My grandfather was Polish, and so I've always had a sort of affinity for things like this. We've even got driving lamps. We've even got a posh one, this Polonaise Prima. So if we just close this door, maybe if we can open the back one, which looks open as well. There we go. It's quite a spacious car, this, actually. The interior trim is obviously not the highest quality. That ashtray's not looking great, is it? But this is very 70s, this whole kind of feeling of it. The design and just the way the door card looks and things like that. It's all very, very 1970s. But much more practical design than the 125P that was the predecessor to this, although the engineering is quite similar. I think it's a sort of Fiat-derived engine in this. Some of the FSO Caros, or the Polonaises of later years, actually came with a Rover K series engine, which is strange, isn't it? But it's not the only thing around here from other countries they've got. This is a Toyota Celica, first generation one. Now, it's very, very, very confusing with these as to what the model codes are and stuff like that. It's incredibly confusing, depending on which part of the world you're in, and the facelifts occur at different times and all this sort of thing. This is an ST 2000, which dates from 1977, so this is a facelifted one. I think they finished in '78, these first generation Celicas, from what I can remember. But yeah, that's pretty good. I'd have a go on one of these, actually. Another really rare coupe from the 70s is this 1973 Opel Manta A. This is the S model. The A means it's the first generation of Manta. We're much more familiar in this country, of course, with the Mantas that were made from 75 onwards, all the way through to 1988, when they were replaced by the Calibra. But this is a Manta A. Like the Manta B, it's based on the Opel Ascona. Now, back in those days, there was no exact equivalent of the Opel Ascona in this country. The Opel Ascona B had become to the first generation Cavalier, but the Opel Ascona A, I don't think I've ever seen one, actually. It didn't quite have a sort of badge engineered equivalent, because they weren't really badge engineered back in the day. We had the Viva and the Victor about the time that this car would have been made. There's actually a chase with one of these in it, in an episode of The Adventurer from, I think, filmed in '72 in Amsterdam with Gene Barry. The Adventurer is one of the worst television series ever made. The chase is quite exciting, though. It's between one of these and an Opel Commodore GSE, which is quite exciting, really. So, yeah, another car I'd like to sort of try, although the chances of getting one of these in for review, I think, are quite slim. So, 1982 Saab 99. I can't remember what model 99 this is. It's quite a late, it's a facelifted one. Obviously, components from this were later used in the Saab 90 and the Saab 900. The 99, I think, had kind of a very different back end from the 900, as you can see here. Just see if we can actually identify what model this is. That's a GL 5-speed. Excellent. Yeah, quite a lot. The 90, I think, came in around 1984. The 900 was already in production by this stage, and Saab were kind of a bit like sort of Volvo. They kind of overlapped the models to quite an extent, which was very confusing to people like me, but you know, I'm sure they knew what we were doing. So Austin Healey Frog Eye Sprite. No door handles, not even on the the Mark II version of this, which came in '61, or the Mark I midget, which was very similar to this. Obviously, the front end and the overall styling was very, very much changed for the Mark II Healey Sprite. But this is the one people want, isn't it? This is the iconic one. Lots of work there from Donald Healey, but lots of engineering from the Austin A35 and the Morris Minor. A little bit further up in the range of BMC for sports cars is this MGA. Very lovely colour this. It's a twin cam version. Not entirely sure what year this is. Back in the day, my mother had a friend who actually restored one of these in this colour. I don't think it was a twin cam. I think it might have been original 1.5 or the later 1.6. But yeah, there's a photograph of me actually sitting in one of these in this colour, which is extraordinary. That's really nice condition, actually, that one. So later on we've got the MGB. There's other MGs here as well. MGB is huge seller, massive seller. And this one's got the Leyland plug hole of despair. This is a bit of a later one. Do we have the fish mouth grill on this one? No, we do not, because this is a bit too early for that. 1970, so it's got a different grill on it. I think it's Old English white, that colour, from what I can remember. So Triumph Spitfire Mark III. This is the last one with this front end. Later the Mark IV had a bit of a styling change, and this is the last one. Look like this. This has I think a 1.3 litre engine, S296 1.3, about 75 horsepower. Very similar to the Triumph Herald and the Vitesse and the GT6 in terms of the construction of the car. And very confusing sort of rear lights. I've always thought the rear lights are a bit of an afterthought with one of these. It always looks a bit strange. The later Mark IV and the Mark V had a different rear end which sort of smoothed everything over a bit. But I still quite like the design of this. Very low car. I wouldn't want to get in and out of there in a hurry, particularly. And we've got some much older stuff here. We've got a Model T. You know, which Motor Museum can call itself complete if you don't have a Model T in it. 1924 Ford Model T, and then a 1929 Ford Model A. It's quite different, really. I mean, the A didn't last nearly as long as the T. By no means at all. Ooh, is this a beige leather interior, viewers? Oh, it's been retrimmed. That's very nice. I'm afraid it's not quite beige. It's sort of cream, isn't it? Wow. That's not the right plaque. It's this one, isn't it? I don't know what part's in there. The exhibits in here do actually change quite often. There are some cars here, and we'll see another one a bit later on, that don't actually belong to the museum. So there we go. So some cars were made at Manchester, where the Model Ts were made as well. But Model A from 31 was made in Dagenham. Excellent. Gosh, it's a massive engine. It's 3.3 litres. Oh, wait, it's this one. This is the right plaque for that car there. Here we go. Right. Yeah, it's 51 Austin A125 Shearline. This is a sort of predecessor to the big Van Pla limousines that you saw in the late 50s and right away up till 68 they made those. Big old car, this is absolutely huge. But I don't think this is the limousine version, I think this is just a standard one. Ooh, that's almost got a beige leather interior, isn't it? It's very, very almost there. But if we look at the front, we can actually kind of see the upholstery is more sort of beige and biscuit here. Lots and lots and lots of wood. Right, let's go back there and have a look at more of a wedding car fleet, shall we? So one of the main rivals of the Van Pla limousine, until 66 when they were both the same companies in British Motor Holdings, was something like this 1967 Daimler DR450. As you can see, this is all set up to be a wedding car. And I'm afraid it's too late for me to choose a wedding car because I got married 5.5 years ago. So, but someone's put a beige leather interior in the back. I do like a nice beige leather interior, viewers. And we've got the jump seats in there for bodyguards and everything, because this was popular as like a state limousine as well. Still got the sort of fluted details on here with the boot lid there. There's one of these in an episode of the Avengers called Death's Door. That's the sort of only thing I can really tell you about it other than that. The successor to both the Van Pla limousines and the DR450 was the DS420. This is a very early one. Very appropriate registration number, though BMC has ceased to exist by the time that this car was built. Yeah, these continued for a really, really long time. With the 4.2 XK engine. This is a 1970. Again, it's ready for wedding car business, this one. Got the Bristol 407 body butt front section. That's quite strange, isn't it? Now, these two American cars, although they are on a P and an R plate, they're not from those years. Back in the day, when you imported a car from, say, the United States of America, they would just slap the registration plate of whatever year the car came in. So this would have been imported around 1975, 76, and this Plymouth Fury would have been imported around 1976, 77. Not very familiar with big American cars like this, but we've got the information plaques which have been helping me out so far today. 67 Cadillac Sedan DeVille Coupe, and this one would have come into this country in the 70s, and then it was acquired by someone else and used as a wedding car. So it's been used as a wedding car for a really long time, about 40 years. Yeah, with this this white paintwork and this sort of extravagant appearance, I'm sure people very, very much appreciate having this. You see here, you see how long this car's been in the collection, because that's a pre-1995 area code. It's been in a long, long time. Have a look at this Plymouth Fury. It's got these kind of safety door handles on it. I think Chrysler were the first people to put these sort of safety door handles on their cars, sort of flush fitting ones, as opposed to these ones that are sticking out on this Cadillac. Yeah, typical kind of early 60s American interior. Very, very lavish. Would have looked very futuristic at the time. So it reminds you of Fireball XR5, something like that, really, which was started the year after that, and then a sort of supercar before that, with the old Jerry Anderson series. Amazing, isn't it? Earlier on, Mr. Bill and I were talking about this Reliant Robin. It's got, I think, Fiesta Mark II headlamps, and it's got various bits off, sort of like Mark III, Mark IV minis. And look at those stalks, which you can't really see, but if you zoom in a bit, there we go. The little stalks from, I think, Marina or an Allegro. I think these are off an Escort Mark III Estate or something like that. I think so. It's an amazing car. They were made, I think it took about 2003. Reliant went under, which was a real shame, actually, because people kind of love these. And this isn't the only Reliant in the museum either. So this is the latest addition to the museum. Lots of minis here. We've even got a bit of a mini here. It's a seat. Mr. Bill and I have been wondering if we could sit on this, although we might have a sneaky sit down a little bit actually on that. So, yeah, this bit opened last year, which is great. Vauxhall iron railings. Wow. Amazing. So we'll start off with this Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow. This is a Silver Shadow 1, it's a 73. HROM plates on this, so I imagine it would have perhaps actually come from that particular dealership, a very famous one in London. It's very nice condition for one of these. They're actually not worth as much as you'd think, unless they're in sort of a condition like this. We see a lot of rusty ones, which are, a bit sort of scary, but this is beautiful, this one. Perfect for a wedding season. So, very, very early on in the first video, we talked about which Richard Atwell had for a while. It's up there. It's a Little Singer Junior. This is hers. His lady wife, Wilson, or Atwell-Wilson, hence Atwell-Wilson Museum. This was her daily transport for many, many years. It's actually not owned by the museum anymore. One of the local enthusiasts actually bought this off from the museum and has done it up recently, a chap called Terry Conner. And it looks absolutely amazing. Very late carbon. I think these finished around 1981 in the estate form and 1980 in the standard form. This has the automatic gearbox in it. And we've got more minis here as well. This is a 1999 Mini 40 LE. These are apparently quite rare, actually, that's how I understand. So you've got Mr. Bill, who is an expert on these cars, who's been looking around here as well. That's on loan from a local chap called Michael Bennett. Mini Mayfair, 1989. The Mayfair trim was available on Minis much longer than anything else, as opposed to the Metro, Maestro and Montego. Mayfair versions of those all finished actually in 1988. I think the Mayfair of these lasted into the 90s, but that's a very, very nice example one. The wheel trims aren't standard on this. I did drive a Mini Mayfair actually from this year on the channel a couple of years ago. You can have a look at that if you want. Just type in Tweed Jacket Reviews Mini Mayfair. That one had been modified a bit more than this though. Now this is a Mini 9X, a gearless. It's from 1970. There's Sir Alec, a Sagonis there. Absolute utter genius. Quite an interesting sort of lifestyle. He lived with his mother for many years and he chain smoked. But absolute genius nevertheless. This has got a 1.5 litre engine in it. It's a gearless Mini. So I've left the window open. It's a really curious mixture of sort of bits. It's got a Mark III door handle and a Mark II door on it. And the front is completely different in order to accommodate the 1.5 litre engine. So the gear lever is actually kind of in the dash to the right-hand side of the steering wheel. You can just sort of see it there. That steering wheel, yes, it's the same as on the majority of Rowan Atkinson's cars and Mr. Bean. But a torque converter goes from forward to reverse. Apparently there's no gears in it or anything, which is interesting. Now, this is one of three, apparently, that survive. It's known as the green car. It's the earliest one that kind of is around. And it was in, I think, BL's collection for a while, but now it's here and being cherished. Rather like this very early Mini. This is a Morris 850 Mini. I think it was built in Zimbabwe, the 61. So we've got things like the little sort of sliding windows and a massive door pockets, and we might have a choke on the floor and things like that. The dip switch on the floor. It's a very early. I think this is the deluxe model. That's the side trim for one of the sides. It should be on the car, but we'll put it on at some stage. But I didn't realise they made them in Zimbabwe, but they did, which is it's interesting. This is a 1983 Ford Capri Mark III. It's a really basic one, this. It's a 1.6. I think it's probably like an L or something. This is before the laser was the most common model. It's actually got a 5-speed gearbox in it. Yeah, just called a Capri. It might even just called a Capri 1.6. To be honest, there you go. Look, there's sort of low spec wheels, not even got any trims on them. But this car's done almost 300,000 miles, and apparently the engine still runs well, so that's good. Paintwork's actually quite good. I don't know if it's original or not. Can't remember the name of this colour. Somebody in the comments can enlighten me. I've only ever driven a 2.8 injection Capri, so one of these, which I think would have a Pinto in it for 1.6. That would be something I'd like to try, actually. They do have one at Great British Car Journey with a 1.6 laser. Ooh, Reliants Sanity. It's the second Reliant on the channel. It's a 79 Scimitar GTE. This has got the 3-litre engine in it, the 3-litre V6. And a manual gearbox. Is it a 5-speed? No, it's not a 5-speed manual. Looks like the old Type 4 or Type N gearbox in this. I'd have to go with one of those at some point. I'm not going to say what you want me to say because that phrase is banned as far as I'm concerned. Ooh, very nice. I used to have a car that was identical to this. This is a Rover 216 SLI automatic. It's got the Honda D-Series engine in it and these wheel trims. Now, I used to have one of these. Mine was registered in 96. It was built in 95. This is slightly earlier. This is a 94. Now, you can tell it's a 94, but the fact that it's actually got an airbag and it's got the two-tone paint, and it hasn't got colour-keyed bumpers. Mine was built in 95, and it actually had monotone paint and colour-keyed bumpers, but otherwise very similar. Mine was not in the condition of this. 95 red car, very popular Rover colour of the 1990s. That is beautiful. I miss mine. So, and the Morris Ital. This is a 1.3 HL Auto. I thought the Auto was only on the larger engines, but clearly I am wrong. So this is a very, very early one. It's a 1980. The earliest ones were on a V. This is on a W. There are not many of these left because, well, same thing in the Marina, really. They weren't worth tons of money and they rusted and people didn't care about them. But this in Vermilion is the name of this colour. Is absolutely amazing. And then we've got this amazing 1974 Morris Marina TC Jubilee edition. So this is the 1.8 with I think 95 horsepower in this. I've driven a Marina quite recently at the British Car Journey, and it was pretty good, to be honest. It wasn't bad at all. It was a very late one. It was a 79. This is a much earlier one. I can't remember the name of this car. I don't think it's Lime Flower. I think Lime Flower is slightly different from this. But certainly that is amazing. It might be Citron Green. I can't remember now. And I've got another Radio 16. And this time it's an Austin 1100 Mark 1, which is similar to the one that I drove last year on my channel, actually. A chap by the name of Alan owns it. And it was a lovely car to drive this, if the gearbox is in good condition. That's very nice. Morris Minor, of course. How can you have a museum without a Morris Minor? This is a 59. It's a 948cc Minor 1000, like the one that my mother used to have. Hers was a two-door in like a sort of light blue colour. This is a four-door. Hers, I think, is still around, although the plate's been taken off it, so I can't trace it. But yeah, amazing. You can see the rear lights are a bit different, and also the wipers meet in the middle on this. The 1100cc Minor 1000s have normal wipers and, later rear lights. Very closely related to the Morris Minor is this Wolseley 1500. It's actually got a 1.5 litre engine, so much more power than the Morris Minor. I don't know if you got sort of better brakes in this. I hope you would do, because the brakes are a little bit scary in a in a standard Minor. They're a bit scary. Having actually driven one of these on the channel last September, 69 two-door in Trafalgar Blue. Well, I mean, the Morris Minor, I don't mean one of these. I mean, I'd drive one of these. I'd prefer better brakes. That'd be good. And maybe even a synchro first gear, that'd be even better. But this is more my kind of car. Maybe Riley 1.5, I prefer even more to this. But we've got very sort of 60s kind of things in here. Yeah, It's a much sort of more upmarket car, isn't it? Jaguar 420G. This one is a 1968. These were like a facelifted Mark 10 Jaguar. Had the 4.2 XK engine as opposed to the earlier 3.8. Amazing kind of big, imposing car with, some of them had 6 seats, this one doesn't. I think you could get a manual, but this one's an auto. Again, it's a sort of car that I'd like to have a go in, actually. You'd have to be quite careful with this, though, because it's so big that threading it through London streets in the 60s would have been interesting. There we go. Wood and leather and all kinds of things. But it's going to get more exciting in the second view because we've got another very tasty Jaguar. This is a really, really late Series 3 XJ6. I know the V12, once of these continued until 1992, but in terms of the 6-cylinder one, this is a really late one. 85 XJ6 Series 3, which look really, really smart, actually, these. And it's got a beige leather interior with wood. I do like a nice beige leather interior, and I can smell the wood and leather from here. Oh, it's a Sovereign. Excellent. Excellent, viewers. We like that very much. We also like this XJS here. I thought this was an HE, actually, when I first saw it, but it's not badged as such. It is a 83 Jaguar XJS. Personally, I would just prefer to go with the 6-cylinder one of these because the V12 is extremely complicated. It requires a lot of specialist maintenance, and the 6-cylinder is just a bit better on fuel as well. But there we go. This one's not actually got that much wood in it. I prefer a bit more. It's just my car, but that's still very nice. Also very nice is this MGB. So it's the second MGB we've seen. This is a slightly earlier one on a G. It's actually for sale, this one. Has that had a different gearbox put in it? Yes. Oh, operated brakes, suspension, tuned engine, £15,000. And as Mr. Bill says himself, this could be yours. Also have a look at the final few cars here. This is a Humber Sceptre, this is a 1965. So it's not the final version of this. It made a Series 3. This has still got a 1.5 engine. The later ones had a 1725, which lived on for absolutely ages, that engine, right away through to about 1983 in the Dodge Space Van, which I think it was called right at the end. Based on the Hillman Super Minx, but more luxurious, more dials and all kinds of exciting things. I'd prefer one of these to the other versions of this design. And then we've got a Victor 101. This is also known as the FC Victor. This one I think is from 1966, yes, 1966. And it has a bench seat in it. You could get these with a floor or a column change. If you were the centre passenger in there, that's going to be interesting for you. Too much kind of man-touching if you're sitting next to your friends in there. But there we go. Yeah, 101 Super. It looks far more sort of turquoise on camera. It's actually like a very light green that I can see here. But yeah, you don't see many of these, do you? Vauxhalls at the time have this awful reputation for rust. And of course, a TR7, this is 79. It's actually quite similar to the one that I drove at Great British Car Journey recently. Again, a Calne built car. I think the one I drove was also one of the, actually. So similar in age to this. And you can find what I liked and disliked about it if you watch the review on Secondhand Classics, which I uploaded a few days ago. Anyway, I think that's it from the Atwell-Wilson Motor Museum. Thank you so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Like to leave a comment below. I apologise for all the background noise earlier. There are some people in the museum. And don't forget to watch Mr. Bill's non-shambolic shuffle as well. Thank you.